It's the show the establishment warned you about.
Welcome back. This is the Thanksgiving edition, broadcasting from the free state of Florida, in the heart of Florida, in Tampa, Florida, from Echelon Health Studios. If you're new to the program, thank you for joining us. And if you want to subscribe, and if you've already done that, thank you. Go ahead and subscribe on Rumble. That's where you can watch the show. You can also listen to it on any of the podcasting platforms. And you can find those options at drtommy.com/podcast. If you're in the area and you want to be a member of our concierge medicine program at Echelon Health, go to drtommy.com. All right. Thanks for joining us. I wanted to start off with some good news. There's been so much bad news in the news recently. I was reading this right before I came on. This is on Breitbart, and this is about some strangers who met on Thanksgiving years ago after inadvertently texting each other. It says, this is from Breitbart. Strangers who met after accidental Thanksgiving plans text still meeting 7 years later. When the best laid plans go astray, accidents can take place and the outcome can be just as good, if not better. Just ask Jamal Hinton and Wenda Dench, total strangers who met 7 years ago after a text message seeking Thanksgiving plans went wrong. On November 22nd, Hinton shared a photo standing outside Dench outside a cheesecake factory. So here's what the people look like. All right. For those of you listening, it's a white woman and a black gentleman. It says here, it all started like this. In 2016, Dench from Mesa, Arizona, accidentally sent a text to Hinton telling the then 17-year-old that Thanksgiving dinner was at her house on November 24th at 3 p.m. It was meant for her grandson, who had changed his phone number. Instead, Hinton got the message while sitting in class at Desert Vista High School. When the teen asked who sent it, Dench replied, "Your grandma," with an elderly woman emoji. Hinton wrote back asking for a photo to prove the number really belonged to his grandmother. After she sends a selfie of herself at work, he replies with a photo of his face and a text that's saying that she's not his grandmother. "Can I still get a plate, though?" Hinton gently suggested. "Of course you can. That's what grandmas do, feed everyone." She replied with a piece of cake emoji, and so the pair have continued to this day. Hinton told his social media followers last week the two would be celebrating the day together again. In an interview earlier this week with azfamily.com, Denton and Hinton reflected on their friendship. "I would have missed out on this wonderful relationship," Denton said when asked about what would have happened if she hadn't invited Hinton over years ago. "I've changed my views so much of the younger generation, and now I've reflected back on all these years. I didn't change their life, they changed mine." That's a nice story, isn't it? So here we are. So that's just to go counter to the media narrative of several media narratives. One is a media narrative that all stories must be stories of negative things. Also goes against the media narrative that black and white people hate each other. That's not only a media narrative, that's a narrative pushed by mostly all the establishment type leftists that you see, including the former First Lady Michelle Obama recently said that she was not able to wear her hair in a natural state because her husband at the time was the president, and when she was in the White House, she was not able to wear her hair in her natural state, which I presume she preferred, rather than the chemically straightened form which she wore her hair, because Americans weren't ready for that. You see, us Americans, we were just too racist. Us I assume non-African American Americans, because she said that those people would not be comfortable. So I assume she meant people who were white or otherwise not black. Anyway, she said that we weren't ready for that, and it would have distracted from her husband's push at that point to try to get Obamacare rammed through Congress, which they successfully did. So I wish she had actually worn her hair that way. If it did distract from his plan back then, that would have been nice, so we wouldn't be dealing with the hell on earth that is Obamacare currently. That being said, this just goes to show you that despite what the media says, black people and white people in America do not hate each other. And this white woman, was not looking to oppress this young black man, and this black man was not looking to attack her violently, as they do in New York routinely, apparently. black hate crimes there are in New York. You see them all the time, attacking people. So all the things that you see in the media aren't necessarily what's the reality in real life. It brings me to think about all the kids that I see when I go to pick up my daughter. There's all kinds of skin color kids. And I never hear my daughter even really talk about it at all. And it just reminds you, when they are so young like that and innocent, how their minds have not been perverted yet, and mostly perverted by the culture, the rotten culture that we have, and especially the rotten media that we have that teaches you that people that are different skin colors are different people entirely, and they must live different lives and be treated differently, and people are oppressing other people. And when they're young like that, they don't even think like that. And thank God these people didn't think like that either. And now we have this nice story. So that's a good story for us. This is another thing about the media. This is a brand new report. This is from Breitbart. Report: Colorado gay nightclub shooter identifies as non-binary, uses they them pronouns. This is from Jordan Dixon Hamilton. It says Anderson Lee Aldrich, the suspect who allegedly shot and killed 5 people and wounded at least 18 others over the weekend at an LGBTQ nightclub in Colorado, identifies as non-binary and uses they them pronouns, according to a court filing on Tuesday night. Aldrich, 22, is facing multiple murder and hate crime charges stemming from last weekend's shootings. I'm not sure what the hate crime is then. If he's they, them, and he's at an LGBTQ nightclub. That's where you get into trouble with these hate crimes. What makes a hate crime a hate crime? If I murder someone, let's say that I'm Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, and I'm a murderer, and I murder children and I murder people. And I do all kinds of disgusting, perverted, sadistic things to people. But I murder them just because. I don't murder them for any particular reason. Is that a better murder than if I murdered them because I hated them? Or does that mean that if I did murder them, doesn't by definition, does that mean I hate them? At least on some level, or at least dislike them? Or at least don't have anything positive to say about them? Does that constitute a hate crime? But that doesn't, right? But anyway, this guy was charged with hate crimes, apparently. Guy, girl, whatever you want to call them, they, them. However, Aldrich's public defender revealed that Aldrich is non-binary and uses, quote, they, them pronouns, the New York Times reported. In addition to the pronouns, Aldrich is referred to as Mix Aldrich in the court filing. So that's MX as opposed to MR, MRS, or MISS. Anderson Aldrich is non-binary, a footnote in the filing states. They use they, them pronouns, and for the purposes of all formal filings will be addressed as Mix Aldrich. How the hell do you... Okay. The news about Aldrich's identity came after Democrats and members of the corporate press politicized the shooting and blamed Republicans for the tragedy. Now, that was predictable as hell. For example, NBC's Ben Collins claimed that, quote, Republican politicians and, quote, the internet's far-right machine targeted LGBTQ plus individuals in the months leading up to the nightclub shooting. But I think we have a come to Jesus moment here, as reporters, Collins told MSNBC. Are we more afraid of being on Breitbart for saying that trans people deserve to be alive? Or are we more afraid of the dead people? Because I'm more afraid of the dead people. Democrat Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez blasted Colorado Republican Lauren Boebert as a, quote, bigot who motivated the shooter shortly after Boebert issued a statement condemning the violence in her home state. This is on Twitter, apparently. At Lauren Boebert, you have played a major role in elevating anti-LGBTQ plus hate rhetoric and anti-trans lies while spending your time in Congress blocking even the most common sense gun safety laws, Ocasio-Cortez tweeted. You don't get to have, quote, thought and prayers your way out of this. Look inward and change. Dehumanizing rhetoric leads to dehumanizing actions, which quickly translate to violence, shootings, and worse, Cortez added in an Instagram post about Boebert. Aldrich is set to make a virtual court appearance on Wednesday. So, this shooter is a non-binary. Now, if I'm to go ahead with the media template, I'm supposed to immediately call out non-binary people, right? And say that they are need to be restricted. Maybe they need to have their social media accounts monitor more closely. Maybe we need to have a public discussion about whether or not it's helpful for non-binary people to go around saying they, them, because that leads them to do horrible things, right? That's what we're supposed to think. Because imagine if this was a MAGA person, okay? Imagine if Mr. and Mrs. Mix Aldrich said that instead of saying they're they, them, they're him, her, or he, she, or they said, look, I think that Donald Trump was a good president. Do you know that right now we would be having conniption fits on the media, the Democrats and the media, and also on the Capitol Hill would be having conniption fits, saying that how this proves once and for all that Donald Trump must be banished from public life and be banished from any type of intercourse with the public at all because of his ability to stoke hatred and violence. But now here we have this Mix Aldrich is a him, her, or she, shim, whatever, and that just totally explodes the whole dynamic of what we should do now, because the media tells us that if it meets a certain criteria, then we must go all in, as Ocasio-Cortez here did, in blaming Lauren Boebert for motivating this. But who are we to blame for this? Who are we to blame for this? We're left without any guidance from the class of intellectuals that we call media and celebrities. And also, what do we do? Is Jimmy Kimmel weighed in on this? Is what I want to know. What does Jimmy Kimmel think about this? Is Jimmy Kimmel going to give us a solemn monologue now? Is he going to give us a heartfelt look into our hearts and see what we should do about the non-binaries out there who are shooting up nightclubs? This just exposes the utter imbecilic responses that you get from people like Ocasio-Cortez in the media and this guy Ben Collins. They're so faultless. The depth of their intellectual curiosity is so shallow that they can't go beyond their programmed reflex macros that they could have programmed to spout out of their mouths every time something like this happens. They just have to go ahead and go with what it is, and they know it's the alt-right, MAGA people, all these people, these people that dare say that common sense gun control, that they call it, is something that they oppose. And that common sense gun control basically is going to end up being, you don't have any guns. That's the most common sense gun control that they can see. There's another headline here that there's been another shooting now already. Okay, so this is in, where is this at? There's another shooting. Anyway, it took place in a nightclub, I think. Or not a nightclub. It took place at a supermarket, maybe. Let me get ahead of myself. Anyway, it was done with Chesapeake Walmart. 6 dead after gunman opens fire in Chesapeake Walmart. This is from Breitbart. This happened just recently. It says 6 people are dead after a gunman opened fire inside a Chesapeake, Virginia Walmart roughly an hour before the store was closed. CNN reports the shooting suspect is also dead. He was shot by police. And anyway, this guy apparently used a handgun. Now, that goes against the narrative, right? Because it's always the AR-15 that's to blame. The gunman who opened fire in a Chesapeake, Virginia Walmart Tuesday night was allegedly a manager who used a pistol to kill 6 people. This is from AWR Hawkins in Breitbart. Breitbart News observed that 6 people were killed when the gunman opened fire around 10 p.m. Tuesday, and the gunman was dead as well. No details were known about the gunman or type of firearm used. And then on Wednesday morning, that's when it was originally reported. And on Wednesday morning, it was reported on Tuesday at 10 p.m. On Wednesday morning, Chesapeake Police Chief Mark Soleski noted the alleged gunman was a Walmart employee who used a pistol. So gunmen that use pistols now is not what we were told. We were told the AR-15s are the bad guns, right? Assault rifles. Well, now this guy used a pistol. So now common sense gun control has to include pistols. Is that right? I mean, that can only be the only thing we could take from this. Because as we know, the knee-jerk reaction to anything that is violent like this that has to do with the guns is that it's gun violence and it's due to the gun. Nothing is said about the rotten culture that we have. Nothing said about lack of people who are in the law enforcement taking these people off the streets if they are dangerous. A lot of times these people have already committed crimes that would have gotten them put in behind bars. Who was it recently? There was somebody who was a shooter, and he was supposed to be off the streets. Oh, it was this guy, the shooter in Colorado. Yeah, he was supposed to have. He threatened to blow up his mother's house, and the DA did not chose not to prosecute him to the full extent. I don't know what they prosecuted him as, but anyway, the point of it is this person was not prosecuted aggressively, and because they weren't prosecuted aggressively, this is what we have to deal with now. Is now they're shooting up a nightclub. And so we don't talk about that. We don't talk about the rotten culture. We don't talk about the lack of parents at homes. We don't talk about any of that. All we talk about is guns, because that's the most politically advantageous thing for these lightweight, weak-minded Democrats in the media and also in the Congress to go with. And also add in there the weak-minded rhinos who all reflexively go for it. You know, if this person here, this Colorado nightclub shooter, had turned out to be a MAGA Republican, okay, God forbid, you would have seen Congress would probably be meeting today to take in more gun control measures just because of that fact. The fact that it's a non-binary person, all of that stuff will go away. This story may not even exist by tomorrow, by Thanksgiving. After Thanksgiving, this story may be completely wiped solely because of the person who did the shooting was not someone who fit their narrative. They will drop it like a rock. And if it had met their narrative, though, you would see all of the shock troops spring into action. The Democrats in the media would have sprung into action. The Democrats in Congress would have sprung into action. Joe Biden, the animated corpse president that we have, would have sprung into action reading the teleprompter, albeit with slurred speech and reading the things that aren't supposed to be read. Next line, period, so forth. And anyway, so it just goes to show you how unserious we are as leadership, is that you could say leadership in government or wherever, about really addressing what the problem is with shootings. And what is the problem with shootings, you know, in nightclubs, anywhere, is it gets back to cultural rot. I mean, why does anybody commit crime? At the very base of it is most people who commit crime are not moral people. And we as a society are not a moral society. This is not news, but that's what we're promoting. We're promoting amoral societies, immoral societies. Morals are to be done away with. Morals, we're told, is if you teach morals or morality, you're trying to take us back to the 50s. Oh, you want to take us back to the times when black people didn't have rights. You want to go back to the 50s where women weren't allowed in the workforce. That's what we're told. And if you do anything that's against the mainstream, anything that's against traditional conservative values, or anything that promotes traditional conservative values, married parents, raising children in a Christian home, a Judeo-Christian home, doing things like going to church, celebrating Thanksgiving of all things. You know, celebrating Thanksgiving now is racist, we're told. I haven't read anything about it, but it happens every year. All of the nitwits over at the New York Times and all these other mental midgets, they always talk about how Thanksgiving's this terrible thing. You know, I don't know if this guy thinks that. I mean, I don't know what the woman who does the 1619 Project, she's probably weighed in already about Thanksgiving. But, you know, the woman who does the 1619 Project, she probably thinks Thanksgiving's terrible. But ask Jamal Hinton. Does he think Thanksgiving's terrible? You know, he met this nice lady, Wanda, and they're friends now. It just goes to show you how warped the sensibilities are of the quote unquote intellectuals, the people who deem to rule us, the people who think that they are the opinion makers, the ones who are molding the minds of Americans, who are leading us on the way to be morally superior by accepting all of their different variations on how society should be organized according to their whims. You know, broken homes, government taking the place of the father in the homes. That mostly is the things that they promote a dissolution of the nuclear family in favor of a family that is fragmented, in favor of a family that is secular, in favor of a family that is, if anything, non-traditional, and therefore being non-traditional, revoking or dismissing the values of before as old-fashioned and possibly racist or misogynistic. And so those people are the ones that are promoted in the media and everywhere else as being the ones who are the real truth givers. They're the ones that we should follow. But in actuality, on the streets in everyday America, if we were to follow more of a traditional value system, we wouldn't have the shootings that we have now, like we have. And it's not because of the guns. It's not because of the guns. The guns is, as the old saying goes, it's like blaming a fork for being fat. The guns is a tool to use. What about the killer that was not apprehended yet? These poor people who were murdered, and those college students, 4 people now, college students murdered in their sleep, so it looks to be. And the media has done a bang-up job of misreporting that all the way along the ways. Tracy and I were talking about this morning. They originally reported this as a murder that took place in a party house, and now they're saying it wasn't a party house, and this, that, and the other. Anyway, the people who were murdered in their sleep, murdered with a knife. But that doesn't fit the narrative. That only fits in to the media because it's kind of strange and bizarre. The shock value of it, like Don Henley's song "Dirty Laundry." People love it. People love it when you, what they say, people love to see you bleed. I think the lyric went. Anyway, "Dirty Laundry," the song from Don Henley about how the media just loves to promote just bad things, and that's how they get off. They get off on reporting bad things, and that's their MO. It's like Rush Limbaugh used to call them the drive-by media. And that's what they do. They just drive by and they blow up a story. They cause all kinds of damage, and then before anybody realizes what's going on, they've moved on to the next one, and they've done another drive-by. And that's what the drive-by media does. So the drive-by media is covering this killing with a knife, but it doesn't. It's a knife. So the important thing is not that someone was killed with a knife or someone was killed with a gun. The important thing is that someone was killed. And you have to look at the depravity that goes behind killing somebody. What is that? And what have we done to address that? It starts at home, though, obviously. I don't know. Anyway, it's terrible. This is from American Greatness. Jen Psaki, Investigations for Thee, but Not for Me. This is by Julie Kelly, who does great work. Former White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki, much like her old boss, is a big fan of investigations. From her perch at the podium in the James S. Brady press briefing room, Psaki routinely endorsed criminal, civil, and congressional inquiries into the events of January 6 and warned the individuals targeted, including Donald Trump and his former aides, that they must comply with the legal process. A reporter asked Psaki during the first briefing whether Joe Biden believed Donald Trump should be held accountable for the Capitol insurrection. Calling the 4-hour disturbance that afternoon a horrific event, Psaki said Joe Biden had spoken with lawmakers on how to proceed, and he was going to leave it to the members of Congress to carry out their constitutional duty to determine what the path forward is, Psaki announced. Psaki later announced that Biden would not extend executive privilege to his predecessor related to the January 6th Select Committee's inquisition, given the investigators carte blanche access to all Trump's public records for most of 2020, most of which had nothing to do with January 6th. We are and have been working closely with congressional committees and others as they work to get to the bottom of what happened on January 6th, an incredibly dark day in our democracy. Anyone who defied congressional subpoenas, Psaki noted, could face criminal charges. But Psaki, unsurprisingly, is taking a different approach now that she is a defendant in a sprawling civil lawsuit seeking to uncover the federal government's deep collaboration with big tech to suppress free speech and promote Biden's political interests. So now, the Biden administration is being sued, and they're being sued by states of Missouri and Louisiana for violating First Amendment rights for American citizens. Psaki is one of more than 5 current and former federal officials, including Biden, Dr. Fauci, and Surgeon General Vivek Murthy, being sued by the states of Missouri and Louisiana for violating First Amendment rights of the American citizens. This is from the lawsuit filing. Having threatened and cajoled social media platforms for years to censor viewpoints and speakers disfavored by the left, senior government officials in the executive branch have moved into a phase of open collusion with social media companies to suppress disfavored speakers, viewpoints, and content on social media platforms under the Orwellian guise of halting so-called disinformation, misinformation, malinformation, the complaint reads. Under the First Amendment, the federal government should play no role in policing private speech or picking winners and losers in the marketplace of ideas. But that is what federal officials are doing on a massive scale, the full scope and impact of which is yet to be determined. And the lawsuit cited numerous instances when Psaki gloated about the White House's partnership. So, this was back when Psaki was a press secretary. They had these meetings regularly with these social media companies, and Psaki would brag about how they were meeting with Facebook and they were helping them. And they were helping them to figure out what was misinformation and having to do with COVID mostly. But anything that was deemed misinformation by the government then was passed along to these social media companies who dutifully did the bidding of the government in basically eliminating the speech of Americans. So this is what this lawsuit's about. But Psaki says that she can't do the lawsuit because, she's a busy, important person. Judge Terry Doty from the Western District of Louisiana last month ordered Psaki to sit for deposition, finding that the ex-spokeswoman, quote, has personal knowledge about the issue concerning censorship across social media as it's related to COVID-19 and ancillary issues of COVID-19. Doughty further concluded that any burden on Psaki is outweighed by the need to determine whether free speech has been suppressed. On November 1st, Psaki was served with a subpoena ordering her to appear for a sworn deposition in Arlington, Virginia, near her home. Psaki, however, does not have time. The newly minted MSNBC contributor, Psaki is slated to host her own show on the network starting this year, is simply too swamped. The burdens of preparing and sitting for any wide-ranging deposition are significant, let alone the deposition of a former senior administration official. Psaki's legal team wrote in a November 3 motion to quash the subpoena. Imposing that burden on Ms. Psaki, a non-party private citizen, isn't that funny, is entirely unwarranted in this record. So it doesn't matter that Donald Trump was a non-party private citizen before, or a private citizen at least. They still impeached him in a kangaroo court impeachment that shouldn't even be constitutional because the Chief Justice didn't even participate because he knew it was bullshit. Anyway, in a separate statement to the court, Psaki claimed that, quote, sitting for a deposition in this matter would be extremely burdensome for me. Among other things, I understand that I would need to devote several days to preparing for the deposition, as well as to attending the deposition itself. That would be highly disruptive to both my work and my family. That's so precious. Here's this woman, Jen Psaki, who sat on the up there expounding about how all of these people out there who are disruptors of polite discourse should be banned from public speech, and all we should ban them on social media. And then Donald Trump himself and all the different officials who contribute, they should all be brought before the altar of the left-wing social justice warriors in the Department of Justice and made to pay for their crimes. But yet, I am too busy. And it says here, Psaki's lawyers attempted to bypass Doughty. They filed a motion to quash the subpoena in the Eastern District of Virginia, where Psaki lives, and will likely sit for the deposition. But the Virginia judge wasn't having any part of it, ordering the matter returned to the Louisiana court where the lawsuit originated. In other words, the judge told Psaki to circle back. Her lawyers immediately filed another motion to halt her deposition. On Monday afternoon, Judge Doughty denied her second motion to quash, accusing Psaki of, quote, making an end run around this court's prior ruling. Doughty also mocked Psaki's argument that she's, quote, too busy, meaning she's too important, of course, to be bothered with legal matters. Doughty says, were the court to find Psaki has an undue burden here, every person subject to a deposition subpoena would have grounds to quash. Absolutely. Preparing for and giving a deposition is part of the normal process for every person subpoenaed for a deposition. It is not an undue burden. See, that's the problem with these people, is they live in this bubble. They live in this bubble where everything they do is celebrated. They are of the left. Everything that they do is reinforced and regurgitated and celebrated. So if you're a member of the left, imagine being a part of this group. You're a member of the left. Your opinions are called correct, moral, upstanding. Your opinions are reflected throughout all media, all quote unquote mainstream media, all corporate media. Your opinions are reinforced throughout the media. The things that you believe in and hold dear are also reinforced and celebrated by the entertainment industry. And to go even further, if there's anything out there, an opinion or otherwise, that goes against your beliefs, then those people are called out by the media, by the government, by the establishment. And so you're made to feel so safe in this cocoon where everything that you do is great, and everybody around you, anyone around you who disagrees, is the enemy and is held forth as the enemy and is dealt with accordingly. And so along comes this deposition where these two states, how dare they challenge your feelings that the states of Missouri and Louisiana, that you violated someone's First Amendment rights. Well, how dare they? You were simply trying to protect everyone from misinformation. You were trying to protect people from malinformation, from disinformation, from all of the things that you hold dear, because the things that you believe are not ever to be considered misinformation. You are the pure as the wind-driven snow, and you are correct 100% of the time. And we know this because the government reinforces it, that you are among the woke aristocracy. You are the correct believer. You are the true believer. And yet here comes this judge along trying to make you do a deposition. And you say, look, I can't, this is shocking. This is shocking to you. And so you try to get out of it. And you say, look, I can't do it. I'm too busy. And then who is this judge to come along and tell you that you have to do this, when clearly all you were doing was acting in the best interest of society, and by trying to limit these people's free speech? Because in her mind, this is shocking to her. In her mind, Jen Psaki thinks all these people that she silenced, they should be silenced. They're lucky that they're only being silenced. In a true just society, these people who spread misinformation in her mind, who spread malinformation, these people should not only be silenced, they should be re-educated potentially. You know, they should be made to pay for their misdeeds. You know, how is it that they're allowed to go out and spread misinformation and just, that's it? They should be glad that they're only being silenced. You know, if Jen Psaki had her way, and the people around Jen Psaki, and people who think like Jen Psaki, these people shouldn't just be silenced. These people should be banished from polite society and potentially punished and re-educated in gulags. But that's not what happened. And so this is shocking to the sensibilities. And this is what happens when you live inside this bubble that allows you to just kind of only believe the things that are important to you are actually the things that are true. You know, if you're in this bubble that you believe that, vaccines are the things that everyone must have, and anybody who disagrees with that is wrong. You believe that people are oppressed based on their skin color, and the people doing the oppression are people of another skin color. And if you don't believe that, you're wrong. You believe that guns are the reason for violent crimes, and the only reason that people are murdered in record numbers every weekend in Chicago is because of the guns. It's not because of the rotten culture. It's not because of the rotten government. It's not because of Democrat rule for decades, potentially centuries in these cities. It's because of the guns. So you're not allowed to believe that. You must believe what she believes. And if you don't, then you're spreading misinformation. You're spreading malinformation. You are incorrect. And then along comes this, and it just is shocking to the system. And we'll see what happens if she ends up giving a deposition. It's just funny, though. Every now and then the courts come back and put people in their place. At the same time that this is happening in one court system, another court system, the Department of Justice is now going to investigate Donald Trump further. It's almost laughable at this point. I mean, you know, it's funny that they're going to investigate Donald Trump I now think it's for his, I guess his documents. Now he's getting investigated for that. There's special counsel, Jack Smith, has been appointed. And so it's interesting. And at the same time, now they're finally starting to come around to saying that Hunter Biden's laptop is real. I saw this report. I don't know who it was on, who did it, but CBS is reporting now. Oh, it was on the Rubin report, I believe. It said the CBS is now coming around to saying that the laptop was real, and the stuff on the laptop is it's troubling. And this makes me think that maybe they're trying to look at taking out Biden. It reminds me of what you would do if you are on the commission, the mafia commission, and you have a weak Don, and you just want to get him removed, and you start just floating stuff out there about the things that they're doing. And that's kind of what it seems like they're doing with Biden, maybe trying to squeeze him on out, maybe saying, well, maybe he should rethink running for president. Because I don't know, though. I think no matter who runs for president, it's not going to really matter. Biden is getting increasingly disoriented, though, every time he talks. He's got this, now almost every time he's got a problem speaking. Used to be every now and then he'd have a problem speaking. Now almost every time he speaks, there's a problem. He either mispronounces a word, he gets lost, he reads something that's not supposed to be read. It's a problem. And he's 80 now, so he's going to be 2 more years, he'll be 82. I don't know. But again, I think they have it baked into the cake. They're going to be able to, I think they'll be able to win no matter what. I mean, I hate to say it because I don't want that to happen. I want there to be a free and fair election. I would like to have some thought that the election that we really had was on the up and up. In Arizona, they're still counting. Well, they're not counting. They haven't certified the election yet all the way. There's a few counties that are holding out. There's 2 counties now, I think, Cochise County and somebody else. And Mark Elias, the superstar Democrat lawyer, is threatening these counties for not certifying. But they're like the mafia, you know. The way they run things, they're like the mafia, the Democrat Party, that is. The things that they do. If you don't go along with what they want, it could be bad repercussions for you. So Mark Elias is threatening these counties that aren't holding out. They're holding out because there's so much irregularity in these elections. Imagine for a second, just put the shoe on the other foot. Imagine instead of Kari Lake losing to Katie Hobbs and losing the way she's losing. Imagine if this was a Democrat governor. Imagine if this was Kathy Hochul, let's say. Or no, let's turn it around. Imagine if this was Stacey Abrams in Georgia. And Stacey Abrams was going against Brian Kemp, and Stacey Abrams, leading up to the election, had polling advantages that made it seem like she was going to win. Now, granted, that's not a given. That's just a poll, and it doesn't count. But imagine that was the case. And then imagine when the election comes, Stacey Abrams was ahead by like 10 points or so, and then suddenly it looks like Brian Kemp was going to win. And then on the day of the election, they say, well, all of the counties where Stacey Abrams supporters usually vote, these heavily Democrat, historically Democrat districts, we have problems with the voting machines here. And imagine if instead of all of the Kari Lake supporters that were giving these testimonies about how they weren't able to vote appropriately, how they were made to wait, how they were told that their ballot, put it in this box and we'll count it later, and all these different problems that they had, the long lines and everything. Imagine instead of that happening in Arizona with Kari Lake's district, that happened in Georgia with Stacey Abrams' districts. Do you think that we would just be sitting around just saying, well, we just got to wait for it to play out. And the media would just be saying, oh, it's over now. We just need to accept it. We need to move on. The Congress would be imagine the Democrat Party, for instance. What would the Democrat Party be doing right now if that was going on in Georgia? There would be hell on earth going on in the Democrat Party right now. They would be raising so much hell right now, and the Democrats and the media would be raising so much hell right now that they would force something to happen, either another election or something. But because it's Kari Lake in Arizona, Republicans are doing what they always do. They're just So, well, that's the way it rolled, and we're just gonna try better next time, without even looking into it at all to see if there's something else going on. The only person who's doing anything, I guess, is Carrie Lake herself. I think I saw too the Republican National Committee maybe thrown in, but then the story, the basic point is that the Democrats fight to win, Republicans try to not lose, and if they do lose, then they just take their loss and then say, well, we'll try next time. What else is there? That's it for today. Anyway, if you're joining us, thank you for joining us. Go on to drtommy.com/podcast and click subscribe. Thank you for listening. And then, like I said, if you're in the area and you want to come in for a consult for concierge medicine, come and visit us. Tracy and I will be glad to talk to you about how we can help you get around the insurance industry. One of the things I wanted to say before I go is I'm thankful for being out of the insurance business. When I first graduated, 2010, I finished training for a fellowship in sports medicine, and I worked for a few years in the insurance world as far as practicing medicine. I am so thankful not to be in that world anymore. It is such a burden. It is such a hassle. And the way that you have to practice medicine there is so far different than the way I practice medicine now. When I practice medicine now, it's 100% devoted to what the patient's concerns are. It's 100% devoted to figuring out what's best for the patient. The only way insurance comes into play for us is when we use the insurance to help the people pay for something. But as far as the insurance telling us what we can and can't do, as far as insurance saying that you can't have a physical yet because you've had a physical within the last year, it's a few days too early, or as far as the insurance saying, well, you can't be seen for a physical and medical complaint the same day, or as far as insurance saying we're not going to reimburse you to send a patient a prescription over the phone, so then it behoves you to make the patient come in and pay a copay so that you can get some kind of reimbursement for taking care of that patient. None of that happens. It's such a blessing. And at the same time, the patients too, when they call, they don't have to wait for on the phone tree. They can call us directly. They don't have to say, well, you have a illness now, and your appointment, we'll have you on appointment in 2 weeks if you're lucky. None of that happens, and I'm so thankful for that, and I'm so thankful for our patients who have allowed us to take care of them over the years. And we're just thankful to be able to do what we're doing, and being able to do it in the free state of Florida. There was a time when when I first started, when the practice of doing this type of medicine, this insurance-free medicine, was under heavy assault, and you can't ever let your guard down because then they always come back. But this type of thing is, it's like the establishment doesn't like this. This is outside the norms. The things that we do, we may treat people that are, we may make suggestions for people that is not what the government says we should do, and it's not what the medical establishment says you should do. For instance, I'm not going to make you wear a mask every time you walk in the door, although that's what you'll encounter in most medical practices. I'm not going to tell you ad nauseum that you must be vaccinated against this or that. I'm not going to make you go on a statin if you have had a lot of problems with a statin. I'm not going to say that you, every time that you come in, that you need to fill out a questionnaire to see if you're depressed or not, so then I can put you on SSRI. So there's all the things that are driven by medical establishment types, whether it be the insurance companies, whether it be the governing bodies, so to speak. So we don't have to do any of that. We can just meet with people and meet with them on a one-to-one level, honest discussion about what their needs are, and as little as possible let the insurance companies interfere with our interaction. And usually they don't interfere at all. The only time they interfere is like if we're trying to get a medication covered, or every now and then like an imaging order. But as far as our interaction with the patients, zero interference, which is so thankful for. Anyway, thank you for joining us. And if you, like I said, subscribe if you're interested in following us, and then follow us on YouTube. I'm sorry, not YouTube, Rumble. And then any of the podcasting platforms. We're on all of them: Amazon, Spotify, everything else. And please have a great Thanksgiving, and please be safe. And our thoughts and prayers go out to all those people who are victims of violence. Despite what these politicians say, thoughts and prayers do mean something. And please look into your local governments and try to get the terrible governors governing the people who are in the government who are likely causing most of the problems in your area, whether it be crime or whatever. That's the ones you have to be able to look out for. It's getting rid of that rotten culture and the rotten government that you have, and that will help you better than banning any guns. And so until next time, we'll talk to you later. Bye bye.